Today I am pleased to discuss my Bill 58, the Brunt and Kendall Act, that is the culmination of 3 years of advocacy and work to keep firefighter trainees safe in the province of Ontario. I have been working with these families and firefighter safety advocates for 3 years. It is my honor to welcome them here today. So welcome to the Brunt family, the Kendall family. Welcome to TJ Thompson, one of the trainees with Adam, who has been instrumental in advancing this legislation. I am joined today by Adam's father, Al Brunt, OPFFA President Rob Heineman, and lawyer Alex Van Kralingen. Over 3 years ago, I learned of the death of Adam Brunt, a young man who wanted to be a firefighter and who tragically died during a private rescue training course. I felt heartsick and was compelled to know what had gone wrong. We then found out that another family, the family of Gary Kendall, had lost a loved one the same way 5 years before. It has been a long and emotional journey for everyone involved. It has been my privilege to know these families and to struggle through this exhausting and frustrating process with them. It has taken a long time to get here, but here we are, with comprehensive legislation in front of us that can finally and properly close the safety loophole and protect firefighter trainees in the province of Ontario. Gary Kendall was 51. He was a volunteer firefighter who died during an ice water rescue training exercise on January 31st, 2010. He was a 17-year veteran of the Point Edward Fire Department. He was taking a course run by the private training company Herschel Rescue when he died. Adam Brunt was 30 and was a firefighting student from Bowmanville who died during a swift cold water training exercise in Hanover on February 8, 2015. He was a Durham College student in the firefighter program at that time. He was taking a weekend course he found on Facebook, run by Herschel Rescue, the very same private training company as Gary Kendall. Both men died under similar tragic, preventable circumstances 5 years apart. These private companies are unregulated. They do not have to adhere to safety standards or industry best practices. Their certificates mean nothing. It is a buyer beware situation. Trainees, unfortunately, assume private courses are legitimate since they are very technical, hands-on, and industry-specific, and are allowed to operate in this province. They are, however, not regulated. Anyone can invent a rescue course. Anyone can be a cowboy and advertise online and run weekend programs without standards, regulations, or accountability and profit from eager firefighter hopefuls. People can die, and companies can keep running these unsafe programs. This bill would regulate this rogue industry. Adam was a college student, but he took a private course that was not affiliated with his or any other college. So Adam was unprotected by any laws or regulations under the Ministry of Advanced Education and Training. Adam was not yet an actual firefighter, so he was not protected by the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services. If he had been employed by a fire service, their training would have had to meet safety requirements. Also, the Ministry of Labor does not have jurisdiction because these training environments are not technically workplaces, and these trainees are not employees. So none of these ministries is technically responsible for these trainees or their safety. This has been a challenging loophole to close because it doesn't fall to anyone in any ministry to fix, which is why I have worked so long and hard to come up with the right solution. I have written 4 letters to government ministers. I have given 2 member statements. I have asked a direct question of the Premier about regulating this industry. I held a press conference with the families and firefighters here to call for an inquest. There has been a police investigation and a Ministry of Labor investigation. I have met with ministers and their policy folks. We had a 2-week inquest last May. We held another press conference and unanimously passed my motion to adopt the coroner's inquest recommendations. And now, here we are with comprehensive protective legislation before this legislature that I have worked sincerely on for 3 years. This legislation is called the Brunt and Kendall Act, in memory of Adam Brunt and Gary Kendall. It is legislation that creates a framework for regulating and licensing private trainers. Like driving instructors, private trainers must be licensed. Curriculum and standards will be set and overseen by the Office of the Fire Marshal Emergency Management, with minimum standards for any rescue course in line with the NFPA or National Fire Protection Association standards. Anything to do with these rescue training courses will be organized, managed, overseen, and recognized by the Fire Marshal's Office. Rogue instructors will never again be able to invent a high-risk training exercise and sell it to unsuspecting firefighter hopefuls. This is a regulation and licensing regime that will protect and ensure training is accountable, necessary, and safe. We are calling on this government, with time still on the clock, to pass this legislation through the House and into law to close this loophole and keep every firefighter trainee safe in the province. So now I'm pleased to introduce and give someone else a chance to speak. From the Ontario Professional Firefighters, we're joined by OPFFA President Rob Hindman. I've been glad to work with the OPFFA for these past 3 years on this issue. We have worked alongside the families since the beginning, when together we had a press conference calling for a coroner's inquest. I have appreciated the careful attention and analysis provided by Mr. Hindman on this bill to ensure that it is a viable solution. Rob?
Thank you, Jen, and thank you for everyone having me here today. Like MPP French said, I am the president of the Ontario Professional Firefighters Association. We represent over 11,000 professional firefighters in this province. But I believe I can speak on behalf of everyone in the Ontario Fire Service as it relates to the importance to ensuring our prospective candidates and our students are performing critical tasks in a training environment in a safe and measurable fashion. I applaud MPP French for bringing this legislation forward. We need to ensure that any high-risk, low-frequency training is done in this province with the utmost of care and ensure that all training and safety measures are in place. To the families of the two firefighter, both the volunteer and the student, you have my deepest condolences on this, and rest assured that I will continue to lend my voice to ensuring that this legislation gets passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Next, I'd like to welcome Alex Van Kralingen. He was the lawyer for the Kendall family in 2010 and again during the coroner's inquest. He has invested much into pursuing justice and solutions, being involved, I think, for 8 years. He continues to advocate for the adoption of the coroner's inquest recommendations. Alex spoke at my press conference calling for the government to support my motion to adopt all of the inquest jury's recommendations, and he is joining us again today. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks, Jennifer. I'm one of the lawyers who represented the Kendall family at the coroner's inquest dealing with Gary and Adam's death. We're here today for 2 reasons. The first is because of the continued commitment of the Kendall and Brunt families and of Ms. French to ensure that firefighters and pre-training firefighter students are kept safe. Sadly, the second reason we are here is because this government, despite making public statements to these families for more than 3 years that it would address the issue of regulating firefighter training, has utterly failed to do so. After Gary died in 2010, the Kendall family immediately recognized the systemic issues resulting from Gary's death. First, that there is no regulation of single-skill firefighter training. And second, that the government was not doing its job to ensure that those participating in these training courses were being taught appropriate curriculum or were being trained in a safe way. The Kendalls have been pushing for change ever since. When Adam died in 2015, Gary's family was not only saddened that this government would not listen to them, but also saddened that another person had to die when proper regulation likely would have made the difference. Put bluntly, the tragic circumstances surrounding Gary and Adam's deaths show that we need appropriate oversight and regulation. Right now, we don't have the appropriate tools to do that. The only way to fix this is through legislation. And so we had all hoped that the government would pass legislation to address this issue. And to that end, in the wake of Adam's death in 2015, the families were initially encouraged. This government made multiple statements that they were going to take a hard look at the legislation, and then that they were working urgently to craft an effective response. But years passed, and at the coroner's inquest, government officials candidly admitted that they were not aware of any legislative efforts to fix this problem. In fact, none of those government representatives could point to anything that had been done to respond. These officials also said that they had no idea about how many of these unregulated courses were being offered around the province. In other words, nobody knows how many people are being placed at risk. After the coroner's inquest, my office wrote to both of the responsible ministers and suggested appropriate changes to the legislation. We were not given the courtesy of a response. Separately, my office has been trying to engage with the Fire Marshal's office for almost 6 months to organize a meeting with the families to discuss their concerns. To date, the Fire Marshal's office has not made itself available to meet with the families. I can tell you that it is frustrating to bring these families out time and again to relive their pain, only to receive no substantive response from the government on the most important issue, the proper regulation of these sorts of firefighter trainers. This inaction from the relevant ministries and the Fire Marshal's office is an abdication of the government's responsibilities to keep us safe. Quite frankly, it also disrespects the memories of Gary and Adam and the efforts their families have undertaken for years to try and get the government to pay attention. Collectively, government and opposition legislators have the power to fix this problem, and it needs to be dealt with now, especially given this government's history of inaction on the issue. Ms. French's private member's bill, which has the support of firefighters, is not controversial. It's just about keeping firefighters and pre-service students safe. This bill should be passed before the upcoming election. With that in mind, my hope is that Ms. French's bill will prompt the government to do the right thing, and I am urging all MPPs from across party lines to vote in favor of Ms. French's private member's bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And finally, I would like to welcome Al Brunt, Adam's father. Al and his family have fiercely pursued protections for others so that no one else will have to endure this kind of loss, and we thank him for his advocacy. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As Jennifer said, I'm Al Brunt. My wife, Christy, are the parents of Adam Brunt. Today's media release brings a bit of comfort to our family as we sit here asking for support in getting the Brunt and Kendall Act, Bill 58, passed into law. As my family has stated since the death of Adam, our goal was to make sure the death was not in vain, but rather a catalyst for change. The outcome of the inquest into the deaths of Gary Kendall and Adam was a submission containing 15 recommendations that would improve safety, introduce new policies and guidelines, and ensure that students are afforded the same rights to safety as volunteers and full-time first responders when taking training. These changes will go a long ways to making training safer in the future for everyone. First responders put their lives on the line as part of their jobs every day. But training for the real situation is an area we can improve on, and that is what this bill will do. There are many reputable third-party training companies out there where safety of the participants is paramount. And this bill helps reinforce that concept as a standard while providing policies and guidelines that can be used to hold parties accountable when non-compliant. In closing, my family would like to thank family, friends, first responders, and everyone that reached out offering assistance since the accident for their continued support. And a special thank you to MPP Jennifer French, who has offered her support from the beginning and led the development and presentation of this bill. Thank you, Jennifer, and everyone for your continued support as we move forward.
You're welcome, and thank you, Al. This has been a very emotional journey, starting with 2 tragic losses. Adam and Gary wanted to make their communities safer. There has been a real sense of purpose along this journey as we've been working through this together with the families and with the firefighters across the communities that support appropriate training and safety. Now, it's in our power to keep people safe and to close a very real loophole that tragically took 2 lives. I urge this government to pass my bill before the end of session. Pass Bill 58, the Brunt and Kendall Act, in memory of Adam Brunt and Gary Kendall. Gary and Adam are remembered as being men who wanted to keep others safe and protected. And now with my bill finally before this legislature, we have a way to do the same and keep trainees in the province safe and protected. We will take questions and also mention that our office can connect with Gary Kendall's daughter or TJ Thompson, a student with Adam, that if anyone would like to make those arrangements, our office can coordinate. Thank you.